Okay, hi. So I get the privilege of being the last speaker. So I'm going to talk today about the implementation of our new workflow to export theses and dissertations from ProQuest into Digital Commons. And I created a QR code in case you want to see the slide deck, to refer to it later. And hopefully that works. I also created a link. So just to give you a little background on Rowan Digital Works. So in 2015, Rowan University libraries had a DSpace repository, and it was just for theses. We didn't even have dissertations at that point. We didn't have a PhD program. So then we decided that we were going to launch on the Digital Commons IR in December 2015. So we migrated all of our pre-2016 electronic theses and dissertations. So that was back to, I think it was around like 1998 or so, that they were digitized. Before that, they were all just, in print on the shelves. We have not digitized any of our theses and dissertations that were only in print. Maybe someday, who knows. So then we started archiving new digital theses on RDW in early 2016. And I came here to Berkeley, and I attended the IR Manager training in March of 2017, which was extremely helpful, let me tell you, very helpful. And so now in 2014, as they sort of began to gear up to start offering PhD programs at my university, the library and the School of Graduate Studies set up the ProQuest ETD Admin platform, which is the way that ProQuest offers to get database, or to get theses and dissertations into their database that probably most of you have at your libraries. It's a database you have to pay for. And so that platform, the ETD Admin platform, allows students to self-deposit ETDs in the ProQuest dissertation and theses global database. And so then they started sending approved theses and dissertations to me in the library to upload to our IR. And then when the process changed in 2023, which is what the main purpose of my presentation is, because I had this relationship with graduate studies since 2014, that was really helpful. I knew who to coordinate with, who to talk to, and everything to create our new workflow. So from 2016 to 2023, it was a little bit complicated, the workflow. So the graduate coordinator would notify me of the approved thesis or dissertation, and then they would put the files on a specific server that they had to give me access to. And then I would download the PDF and the XML file, and then I would manually create a thesis record in my Digital Commons repository in the thesis and dissertation series, of course. And then I would look at the data in the XML file that accompanied the PDF, and then I would put that metadata in the record, like the department, the advisor, and so on. And then I also thought, in order to add a little bit more discoverability to the theses, I put in Library of Congress subject headings as well. And that's not a required field, but I just have been trying to do that with all of them. And then I would upload the actual PDF, and then update it in the repository. So then, in October 2023, I got this email from Allison Thompson at ProQuest, and it said, "Hi everyone, we have collaborated with Elsevier to set up a process to electronically migrate files from ProQuest ETD Admin platform to Digital Commons." And so with that new process, we can use batch upload and bring it into Digital Commons directly. And the really great thing about it is not only can you upload the Excel with all the metadata, the file itself is in there. So there's a URL to the full text PDFs. So you don't have to download the PDF from the ETD admin side and then upload it to your repository. It just goes straight through with the batch upload. And then the other great thing is that you can upload multiple theses and dissertations, because in the past, of course, it had to be one at a time. So now you can do several. I've only done up to about 4 at a time, but even that, you save save all that work. So starting in early 2024, the new workflow I'm going to talk about. So I'm still notified by email from the Graduate Studies Coordinator that the approved ETD is available. And I'm going to show you some screenshots next. So I export the Excel file, and then I copy the data into another file. And the reason I have to use a different file is that in the ETD admin export, it's an XLS file, and then it's like a older version of Excel, an XLS file. So I have to use a different file. And then I have 2 sheets in the file. So I have one that's in the format for ETD admin, and one that's in the format for my particular IR. And then I run these 8 Excel macros that I created, which basically moves data from one sheet to another within the same spreadsheet so that it's all in the right order and the right information where I can do a batch upload. I guess if you create your series after this process takes place, you wouldn't have this issue. But since I already created the metadata back in 2015, I have to do some changes. So then I do my batch upload. And then when each one completes, then I just go in and revise it. And there's, sometimes there's missing metadata or things that might be wrong, or then I update the series. But it's way faster. So in the ProQuest ETD Administrator platform, they've added this new option in the menu. So on the Run Reports menu, you'll see the third option there is Institutional Repository Export. And as far as I know, this is just for Digital Commons. Maybe they'll, upgrade it to other ones later. I don't know about that, but this is expressly for Digital Commons right now. And then, so you choose that option, and then all you have to do is pick the delivery dates. So sometimes it's just, the same day. Or maybe yesterday and today, or all week if you were on vacation or whatever. You put in the dates, and then you press the button, and then you export it to Excel. And so it just downloads it to an Excel file, and then you can rename it, to, like I always put the date in so that I know what to distinguish it from the other ones. And then you use batch upload. So in Digital Commons, if you're not familiar with batch upload, what you can do is you go into the batch upload option under Manage Theses and Dissertations, and then you generate a blank file. So you download it as a blank spreadsheet, and then you fill it in, and then you upload it again. So what I do is I actually reuse the same blank spreadsheet every time, and I just go in and add the data and upload it, and then next time I just give it a new name with the new date, so I don't have to download it every single time. And then there's just, you can see circled in the picture, you pick the choose file, you upload the file, and then you press the upload button, and it launches the batch job, and it starts uploading it, and then it will send you an email notification when it's done. So the most challenging part of this for me was converting the spreadsheet output format that was delivered in ETD admin platform to the one that's accepted by the Digital Commons IR format. So It has the basic data elements that you need to archive theses and dissertations, like the student's name, what degree they're getting. I think probably everyone uses the main advisor as, there's some basic ones there. But then in a lot of cases, like my institution, will add in custom metadata, and we might change the column order. So like in my institution, we have departments, and then we also have colleges. So I have to have a separate field for each of those, right? I mean, I'm just speculating here, but I think that probably most IR managers that would use this process would probably have to crosswalk some of the data from ProQuest to the way that they've got their own ETD series set up to have the the order and the column locations, and they might have to add fields as well. So this is the list of what I found that I have to do for every thesis or dissertation, right? So I've got to copy fields A through N from the IR export file to the same columns in the batch upload file. And then I have to start copying fields from one column to a different column, and from column R to column T, and column T to column Z, like that. It just gets like really long, right? It's a lot of things that you have to do, real simple things, but stuff that you just don't want to do over and over and over again. And then after the upload, of course, I have to add the college, because that isn't one of the fields that comes out of ETD admin. I also have to add all the additional committee members, because that's something that's important. In our university, they want to make sure all the people on the committee get credit. So what I did is I created Excel macros for this. And macros are a feature in the developer menu of Excel. So basically you're creating Visual Basic for applications, VBA code, and it's very simple code. And so I did have some previous experience a while back in doing this kind of coding, so it sort of came back to me. I had to check a few things online to get all the syntax right, but basically all I'm doing is copying things from one field to another, from column N to column Z, or each column. So the way I set it up was I start with one macro, and then it launches the next macro, and then it launches the next one, all the way to the last one. And then after the last one, it gives me a little message box, and it says done. And this actually runs in about 10 seconds, right? So it's really handy. I have to do it for each theses and dissertations. It's not a batch process, but it runs really quickly. So I'm going to show you the code for those of you that might be interested. So the first macro is just called ETD info, right? So this one is just copying everything from one sheet to another. So from cells A2 through N2 in the same cells in the other sheet, right? So then the next one, which is called next, is it's copying from columns P and Q and moves them to columns Q and R, which seems really silly, but you kind of have to do it, right? And then, as you can see in the green highlighting there, then it calls the next one. And then you have to copy another thing, to another column, and call the next macro, and copy from cell S2 to cell U2. Now you'll notice as I'm doing this, right, it's always 2, and I really tried hard to figure out how I could make it not have to be in the second row, but I never did figure it out, and I was like, oh, this isn't worth it. I'm just gonna, put all the records in column 2. So the other thing that I had was with the publication date, I found that it's a required field for the batch upload file, but it wasn't something that was in the ETD admin file. So what I ended up doing was just set it to a single date, to 7/1/24, and then when I go back and revise at the end, after I submit the batch job and it finishes, then I just change it to the real date. So I also did the same kind of thing with the college. So since the college is not in the ETD admin file from ProQuest, So I just put in the College of Education every time, and then I go back after the batch upload and I correct it to the right college. So then the license field was a little tricky, because sometimes if you all have done like a batch upload in Digital Commons, it's very picky about the format, right? So you can't use Y or N. You have to use yes or no, right? So I'm just going to have a little water here. So the license field is set to yes, which is basically the field that says, yes, I agree to put my content into Digital Commons, right? So no one is ever going to say no. But then there's a collection field, and this is something that's just unique to my institution, right? I created a field for collection because of the fact that, you know, we started out with a bunch of ETDs that we had migrated from another repository, right? So those have one collection type, and then the ones that we added to the repository during the 8 years that we had the previous system have another collection type, and then the ones that I have now are another collection type. So no one else would need that. But for me, it was helpful because then you can go back in and you know, search on, okay, I want to see all the theses and dissertations that were put into the system between 2016 and 2023, right? In case maybe you have to make some changes to them or whatever. And then you can see in the screenshot here, the last thing in the whole set is I have a message box that says done, right? So I know it's done. And so then there's a few final steps. So I have this batch Excel file that I want to upload to Digital Commons. And as I mentioned, if there's more than one row in the sheet, you know, more than one thesis, in other words, then I have to run it separately on each row because I've set up the macros to only work on row 2. So, you know, I go to row 2, and then I launch the 8 macros, and then I move each row down and launch the macros again until I'm all done. So then I come back to the Digital Commons IR, and I go to the Theses and Dissertations series, and I choose Manage Theses and Dissertations, and I go to the batch upload, you know, and I choose the file and upload the file that I created. And then it will give me a notification that the batch upload has completed. And so then, as I mentioned earlier, I have to revise each one to fill in a few locally defined fields. The college, the committee members, the embargo date. Yeah, that's always an important one because that's required, and they don't all have embargoes, so the ones that have embargoes will have a value in that field, but the ones that don't have anything, so I have to put in a value of today's date. And as I also mentioned, I put in Library of Congress subjects to improve discoverability as well. So as I said, that every institution will probably have different locally defined fields depending on, you know, what the process is in your institution for uploading theses and dissertations. So you might not even end up needing this step. Maybe you'll be able to just transfer everything from ETD admin with no changes, or maybe you'll have other changes that are different from mine, you know, so anticipate that if you're going to try that. So as far as the old process versus the new process, we get about 100 to 125 theses and dissertations every year. And so the previous process that we had, it worked successfully for 8 years, but it was time consuming. So it took about 30 minutes for each thesis or dissertation. And now it only takes about 10 minutes. So, I mean, these are all estimates, right? But basically, it's a huge time saving. And also being able to upload several at a time also saves time, obviously. And another advantage is that the new way is more automated, so there's fewer room for mistakes. So some of the benefits of the new process include the ability to upload the file itself, the PDF of the thesis or dissertation, to the repository directly from ProQuest using the URL that they provide. So I don't have to use FTP anymore, which is a file transfer protocol, that you have to set up, and you have to have a space on the university server, and you have to get access and be able to read and write to that directory. And, it's a whole thing. But I don't have to do that anymore. So I just pull it directly from ProQuest. And so it's much faster. And then the other thing is the ability to upload multiple electronic theses and dissertations at once using the batch upload. Okay, so my conclusions are the new batch workflow streamlines the file transfer and the data entry, and using the Excel macros saves time and a lot of repetitive copy-paste work on each thesis or dissertation. So if you have locally defined fields in your thesis or dissertation collection and you're responsible for uploading them, you might want to consider looking into using macros as well, because it really saves a lot of time. And you're welcome to contact me. My email address there, brush@rowan.edu, if you want to get copies of the ones that I use and then, modify them for your use, or we can discuss, how I set it up. So the big picture. So ProQuest and Elsevier collaborating on ETDs is huge, right? It's almost unbelievable that the two big corporations could do that. So it was really wonderful. And so the ability to digitally transfer content between systems owned by different companies is very desirable for institutional repositories. So this is wonderful. We can still use FTP, but we really want easier methods, right? We're all busy people, and we all don't want to do a lot of, kind of basic work like that, right? So in moving beyond theses and dissertations, we really want to start streamlining digital content of other things. We want to be able to transfer open access journal articles. Like we've been getting a lot of read and publish agreements with different publishers, right? We want to be able to transfer those articles into institutional repositories without having to hunt them down in Scopus and then download them to our servers and then upload them, We want things to be easier, of course, And so one of my colleagues mentioned that there's a protocol called SWORD that, if Elsevier supported that would make it a lot easier to do this transfer process. So I just want to put that out there. And that is my presentation. Thank you very much. And as I mentioned, this is a QR code, which has a copy of the slide deck, and I welcome questions.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Is this working? Okay. I found that really fascinating, and I love your step-by-step process. And I was wondering, when you're using the macros to add the placeholders to the spreadsheet and then uploading them and then going back and revising them to add the true value, why do you prefer that workflow over changing it in the spreadsheet originally?
Well, because the data isn't right there in the spreadsheet, right? It's in the PDF, but I don't have the PDF in front of me the way I used to, right? So it's easier to just wait until I've uploaded it and the PDF is there, and then I can open the PDF and see, oh, okay, so here's which college it is, and here's the committee members, and that's right on the cover page, right? But when I'm creating the Excel file, I don't have access to that.
That makes so much sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks for meeting me up.
Hi, this might be a silly question, but I'm not a cataloger. So right now we have the students just pick the subject terms and the keywords, and I'm just wondering how you go about assigning them. Like, do you work with a cataloger who then decides? Because I'm not an expert in education or psychology. Like, I wouldn't even know where to start with that. And hopefully I'm not the only one.
Yeah, so there's actually the keywords field that comes over from ProQuest, right? So that's often filled out by the student, not always. And so they'll often put a lot of keywords in there. And then the subject field is a separate field that I create. And we do have access to Classification Web, so I can go on Classification Web and look up the keywords and then determine like what's the best subject heading. And in the beginning, when I started doing it, I kind of looked at a lot of the old theses and dissertations that we had migrated, on the same topics, and I was like, okay, so what subject did they, assign to that, right? And so over time, I kind of gradually learned like what are the typical subject headings and what are the new subject headings and so on. So I'm not a cataloger, no, but I've tried to kind of learn it as I've gone along. So I've been doing it for 8 years, I guess. So I feel like I kind of know what I'm doing now. So.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
You are awesome.